Welcome to today's deep dive. I've been reading through the articles you sent over about keeping dairy fresh longer.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, my fridge could use a serious makeover after seeing this stuff.
I know, right? It's amazing how much goes into keeping dairy fresh.
Yeah. I'm super curious about those natural methods.
Sure.
I get that refrigeration is important, but one article mentioned something about where you put things in the fridge.
Oh, yeah. Placement is key.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about consistent temperature.
Mm-hmm.
The back of that lower shelf, that tends to be the most stable spot.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't get those temperature swings that can really mess with things.
Makes sense, because bacteria and that.
Exactly. Temperature fluctuations can speed up spoilage.
So it's not just being cold enough. It's staying cold.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What about light?
Oh, right. Light exposure can be a big culprit, too.
Yeah, one of the articles mentioned that.
Especially those UV wavelengths. They can degrade certain vitamins, like riboflavin, and even cause off flavors to develop. You ever notice how milk is usually in those opaque containers?
Yeah, I always figured that was just aesthetics.
It's functional. It's all about minimizing light exposure to keep the milk at its best.
Wow. So temperature, light, any other secrets I need to know about?
Well, one of the coolest has to do with fermentation.
Oh, yeah.
Yogurt, kefir, sour cream, all those leverage good bacteria to actually preserve themselves naturally.
I love fermented dairy, but I never really thought about the science behind why it keeps so well.
It's really fascinating. Specific bacteria, like lactobacillus, they actually convert lactose into lactic acid.
Oh, wow.
Which not only gives those tangy flavors we love, but also it creates a more acidic environment that basically puts the brakes on other bacteria that would cause spoilage.
So it's like a battle of bacteria going on?
In a way, yeah. It's nature's way of keeping things fresh.
Yeah.
And speaking of bacteria, you mentioned protective cultures in your research.
I did. That article kind of lost me there, though. What are those exactly?
Protective cultures. They're like specially selected bacteria strains that are added to dairy to enhance flavor, texture, and most importantly in our case, to extend shelf life.
Okay.
They basically outcompete the spoilage bacteria. It's like a microscopic turf war.
Uh-huh. So they're like little bodyguards for our yogurt.
That's a great way to think about it.
Nice. Lactobacillus is one of those?
Yeah, it's a common one.
Uh-huh.
Gives that characteristic tang.
Yeah.
You'll also see streptococcus in some products. That helps with the texture and creaminess.
Wow. It's amazing what's going on at that level that we just don't even see.
It really is.
So we've got those natural preservation techniques. But one thing that stood out to me is the importance of sanitation, too.
Oh, absolutely. Even with the best bacteria on our side, if we're not careful with hygiene,
right,
things can go bad fast.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely had milk spoil way too quickly, and I'm betting sanitation had something to do with it.
It's a common issue. Whether you're making yogurt at home or running a massive dairy plant, sanitation is non-negotiable. Even the tiniest slip-up can introduce the wrong bacteria and ruin all those natural preservation efforts.
So for us at home, what are the top things to focus on?
Well, equipment hygiene is a big one.
Okay.
Making sure any containers you're using to store your dairy are really clean.
Right.
You gotta get in those nooks and crannies, especially around lids and rims. That's where bacteria like to hide.
Honestly, I probably don't scrub my milk jug as well as I should.
It's an easy one to overlook,
Yeah.
but those little details matter.
Yeah.
And then there's personal hygiene, too.
Oh, of course.
Washing your hands thoroughly before you even touch any dairy products. It sounds basic, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, guilty of grabbing a quick snack from the fridge without even thinking about it.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
But being mindful really pays off.
Yeah.
And on a larger scale, big facilities,
Yeah.
they have to be super strict about sanitation throughout the entire production line to prevent any contamination.
It's like everyone in the chain has to do their part to keep things safe and fresh.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can affect dairy freshness, your research also went into milk adulteration.
Oh, yeah. That was a bit of a shocker. Reading about that felt like a detective novel.
Right.
I had no idea milk could be tampered with in so many ways.
Unfortunately, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
It's basically adding stuff to the milk that shouldn't be there.
Right, and usually to make more money.
Right. Often for profit, yeah.
I know watering down milk was mentioned, but it goes way beyond that, right?
It does. Some of the adulterants are pretty shocking.
Like what?
Well, like detergents, for example. They're sometimes added.
Detergents! Seriously?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Wow.
They do it to mimic a higher fat content.
I can't believe that.
But the thing is, it can be seriously harmful.
Right.
Detergents can cause a whole host of digestive problems.
Oh, I bet.
And some contain toxic stuff that can build up in your body over time.
That's scary.
It's a prime example of profit being put ahead of people's health.
It makes you wonder how common this actually is out there. So how do we protect ourselves? Can you even tell if milk's been tampered with?
Knowledge is key. One of the best things you can do is really research your dairy suppliers. Look for brands that are transparent about their practices and have strong quality control measures in place.
So do your homework before you buy.
Absolutely. But there are also some basic tests you can do at home.
Like what?
Remember that curdling test mentioned in one of the articles?
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. You just mix equal parts milk and water. And if it curdles, that could be a sign of certain adulterants.
Wow. I had no idea it was that easy. So knowing your supplier, being aware of these tests, it helps you stay vigilant.
It really does. And always pay attention to those labels. Look for anything that seems off or inconsistent.
Good tips.
Right.
Okay, so we've covered natural preservation techniques, the importance of sanitation, and even this wild world of milk adulteration. It's amazing how much goes into keeping dairy fresh and safe.
It is.
But before we move on, I want to go back to sanitation for a minute. Specifically for folks who produce their own dairy at home.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Or maybe on a small scale.
For those who are really serious about dairy freshness, there are tools out there that can take things to a whole new level.
Like what?
One of the articles mentioned Miracle Everyday L44-D dairy disinfectant.
Yeah.
You familiar with that one? Yeah. It's pretty popular with home producers and small-scale dairies. What's interesting is it ties in with our natural preservation theme.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's made from botanical extracts, so it offers a more organic approach to sanitation.
Hold on, botanical extracts, that sounds kind of fancy for cleaning dairy equipment.
It is unique, but it's also incredibly effective.
Okay.
It basically creates an environment where harmful bacteria and viruses can't thrive.
So we're talking about more than just the spoilage bacteria?
Right. This is about preventing what's called a phage attack.
A phage attack.
Yeah, phages are viruses that can target and destroy the beneficial bacteria.
Oh, wow. So like the protective cultures we were talking about.
Exactly.
So it's like protecting the protectors.
Exactly. Miracle Everyday, L44-D, helps create a shield around those good bacteria so they can do their job of keeping dairy fresh.
That's really interesting. So how and where can you use this stuff?
It's pretty versatile. You can use it for fogging milk cans, bulk milk coolers, making sure those storage containers are completely sanitized.
So that's storage. What about during the production process itself?
Oh, it's great for sanitizing milk tankers, so the milk stays safe during transport. And for folks making cheese or yogurt at home, it can be used to sanitize their equipment, which helps ensure a successful fermentation process.
So a multi-purpose tool for anyone who's serious about dairy sanitation.
Exactly. It gives you that extra level of control over the environment, and that helps extend the life of your dairy products.
This is all super helpful information.
It really highlights that sanitation is a multifaceted thing, whether you're a home cook or a dairy pro.
Right.
Understanding the principles and using the right techniques, it can make a huge difference in the quality and freshness of your dairy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It really shows how important it is to be careful every step of the way.
It is.
Yeah.
From the farm to our fridge, keeping everything clean and safe is so important.
You know, it makes me think we've talked a lot about the science of keeping dairy fresh.
Right.
But there's this whole network of people and processes behind it all that we don't usually see.
That's true. We often don't think about the whole journey milk takes to get to our table.
Right. It's easy to forget there are actual people involved.
Yeah.
The farmers taking care of the cows, the scientists working on those protective cultures, the people transporting it safely, and everyone else in between.
It's a whole team effort. A lot of expertise and dedication goes into it.
And knowing that really changes how you see and appreciate your food.
It does.
It's easy to just grab a carton of milk from the fridge without thinking twice.
Yeah.
But when you stop and think about all the work that went into it,
right,
it gives you a whole new level of respect for it.
It reminds us that our food choices have a bigger impact than we might realize. It affects not just our own health, but also the livelihoods of the people who produce our food.
Absolutely. And speaking of choices, it's clear from our deep dive today that we as consumers, we have more power than we think when it comes to dairy freshness.
Definitely. By understanding how preservation works, being careful about sanitation, and making smart choices about where we buy our dairy, we can really make a difference in how fresh and high quality our dairy is.
It's like taking charge of our own fridge. you know?
Exactly.
We're not just passively getting dairy. We're actively involved in keeping it good.
We are.
Yeah.
And it all starts with being aware and wanting to know more about where our food comes from.
Well, you've given us a lot to think about today.
Yeah.
I feel like I've gone from fridge novice to, like, a dairy detective.
That's great. That's what knowledge does. It gives you the power to make informed choices.
Yeah.
And to appreciate how complex the world around us is.
Right. Even in something as basic as a glass of milk. I think that's a great place to wrap things up. We've covered so much ground today.
We have, from natural preservation to sanitation and even that surprising world of milk adulteration.
Yeah, and we've learned that even the little things we do, like where we put our milk in the fridge or what brands we buy, can really affect the freshness and quality of our dairy.
They do.
A huge thank you to you for sharing all this incredible information and expertise with us.
You're welcome.
And to you, our listener, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into dairy freshness. Hopefully you're leaving with a new appreciation for how your milk gets to you.
Yeah.
And for the power you have to keep it fresh and delicious.
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about rearranging my fridge and maybe practicing that milk curdling test.
That's great. It's amazing how learning a little bit can make you want to change things up, even just your everyday habits. It really is. And it shows that there's always more to learn, even about things we think we know, like milk.
So true. That curiosity to keep learning and exploring is what keeps things interesting.
Couldn't agree more. So to our listeners out there, next time you grab a glass of milk or some yogurt, take a second to think about everything that went into getting it to you.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll make you want to learn even more about this whole dairy world.
It's a fascinating world, full of science, tradition, and new discoveries.
That's a great way to put it. Well, until our next deep dive,
Yeah.
stay curious, stay informed, and keep that dairy fresh.